Fritz Haber, the poison chemist who fed the world. Few Nobel laureates embody human contradiction like Fritz Haber. A German chemist, he unlocked one of history's most life-saving discoveries, the Haber-Bosch process, which extracts nitrogen from air to make ammonia. That single invention feeds billions through modern fertilizer. Some historians estimate half of Earth's population survives because of it. In 1918, he won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for that achievement. Yet just a few years earlier, Haber had turned science toward horror. During World War I, he directed Germany's program for chemical warfare, personally overseeing the first large-scale chlorine gas attack at Ypres in 1915. Over 5,000 soldiers died in minutes, gasping and blind. His wife, Clara Immerwahr, a chemist herself and pacifist, was so horrified by his work that she took her own life shortly after the first gas assault. After the war, Haber continued research for agricultural benefit, but his legacy was shadowed by the same chemistry later used to create Zyklon B, the poison gas of Nazi death camps. Though he was Jewish, the regime he once served forced him into exile. He died in 1934, broke and disillusioned. Fritz Haber's story is the ultimate moral paradox. The man who learned how to sustain life also taught humanity how to end it faster.
Philipp Lenard, the physicist who tried to erase Einstein. In the early 1900s, Philipp Lenard was among physics's brightest minds. He pioneered the study of cathode rays, work that led directly to the discovery of the electron. For this, he earned the 1905 Nobel Prize in Physics, cementing his place among science's elite. Students revered his experiments for unlocking the structure of matter itself. Yet, after Germany's defeat in World War I, Lenard turned from science to ideology. He became an open advocate of Nazi propaganda, promoting what he called Deutsch physics, a racist doctrine rejecting Jewish physics, and above all, Albert Einstein's theories of relativity. He worked directly under Hitler's government, helping purge Jewish scientists from universities and rewriting physics to serve nationalist myth. By the time the Third Reich collapsed, Lenard's own research brilliance was forgotten, replaced by his zealotry's shame. He died in 1947, disgraced. His career a warning of how science without conscience can become fanaticism masquerading as patriotism. His name remains a rare case where a Nobel Prize winner devoted his intellect to the destruction of knowledge itself.
William Shockley, the father of the transistor, who preached eugenics. In 1956, William Shockley shared the Nobel Prize in Physics for co-inventing the transistor, a device that revolutionized technology and made our entire digital age possible. Every computer-based invention, from smartphones to spacecraft, owes something to his discovery. But his brilliance soon gave way to obsession. In the 1960s, Shockley began publicly promoting eugenics, claiming that intelligence was genetic and that some populations were biologically inferior. He proposed voluntary sterilization programs for those he deemed unfit to reproduce, and spent the last decades of his life funding research designed to prove racial hierarchies. Colleagues recoiled. Universities distanced themselves. Once a Silicon Valley pioneer, Shockley died isolated, viewed less as the father of the transistor and more as a cautionary tale about ego unmoored by ideology. His story shows how genius can illuminate the world and how arrogance can make that same light almost unbearable to look at.
Alexis Carrel, the surgical visionary who dreamed of eugenic utopia. French surgeon Alexis Carrel transformed modern medicine. His breakthroughs in vascular suturing and organ transplantation earned him the 1912 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. His work paved the way for heart surgery, kidney transplants, and the concept of preserving tissues outside the body. But beneath the innovation lay disturbing ideology. In the 1930s, Carrel promoted eugenics and authoritarian control over reproduction. His book, Man the Unknown, called for the sterilization or elimination of the unfit, and later found favor in Vichy-era France. During World War II, he accepted a post under the collaborationist government, overseeing an institute that echoed Nazi racial hygiene rhetoric. Though never tried after the war, he died in 1944. Carrel's reputation collapsed. Modern medicine celebrates his surgical technique, yet recoils from his social vision, a reminder that technical brilliance offers no vaccine against moral blindness.
James Watson, the DNA pioneer who couldn't evolve past racism. At just 25, James Watson, with Francis Crick, co-discovered the double helix structure of DNA, unlocking the code of life itself. Their 1953 paper changed biology forever. Their 1962 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine remains one of science's most celebrated achievements. Yet Watson's later years turned him from icon to pariah. Beginning in the 1990s, he made repeated remarks claiming genetic links between race and intelligence, claims rejected by every credible geneticist. In 2019, Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, the very institution he helped build, stripped him of all honorary positions after he doubled down on those statements in an interview. Once seen as the face of scientific curiosity, Watson became a symbol of how intellect without empathy can regress into prejudice. The molecule he helped decode proves all humans share 99.9% of the same DNA, a fact that stands in starker contrast every time he ignores it.
Henry Kissinger, the diplomat of power and paradox. In 1973, U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for negotiating a ceasefire to end the Vietnam War. His mastery of Cold War realpolitik made him one of history's most influential diplomats, architect of détente with the Soviet Union, the U.S.-China opening, and shuttle diplomacy in the Middle East. But peace came edged with violence. Newly released documents tie his policies to secret bombings in Cambodia and Laos, support for coups in Chile and Argentina, and tacit approval of Indonesia's invasion of East Timor. Hundreds of thousands died amid or after these decisions. 2 members of the Nobel Committee resigned in protest when his prize was announced. Until his death in 2023, Kissinger remained both celebrated strategist and accused war criminal, a reminder that diplomacy, when pursued without morality, can redraw maps but erase lives.
Yasser Arafat was the enduring symbol of the Palestinian struggle. To his opponents, he was the face of terrorism. He co-founded Fatah in 1959 and later led the Palestine Liberation Organization, waging guerrilla campaigns for statehood. Decades of bloodshed finally brought him to the Oslo peace table in 1993. A year later, he shared the Nobel Peace Prize with Israeli leaders Yitzhak Rabin and Shimon Peres. The handshake on the White House lawn was hailed as a historic turning point. Yet peace unraveled. Bombings, assassinations, and renewed uprisings followed. Critics accused Arafat of aiding militant factions and presiding over deep corruption within the Palestinian Authority. When he died in 2004, the world remained divided on his legacy: freedom hero or hardened tactician. Arafat's story captures the moral ambiguity of revolutionary politics, where one man's peacemaker is another's monster, and both faces can belong to the same person.
Aung San Suu Kyi, the saint who stood silent. For decades, Aung San Suu Kyi symbolized the power of peaceful resistance. Daughter of Burma's independence hero, she spent 15 years under house arrest opposing a brutal military junta. Her calm defiance inspired worldwide admiration and earned her the 1991 Nobel Peace Prize, the committee calling her, quote, an outstanding example of the power of the powerless. But when democracy finally rose and she became Myanmar's civilian leader in 2016, admiration turned to disillusionment. As the army launched deadly assaults on Rohingya Muslims, killing thousands and driving over 700,000 people into refugee camps, Suu Kyi defended the military's actions in The Hague. Her silence in the face of atrocity stunned the world. Several universities revoked her honorary degrees, and Amnesty International stripped her of its highest award. The woman once hailed as Asia's Nelson Mandela became a cautionary symbol of how power can silence even those who once preached peace.
Peter Handke, the writer who rewrote war's truth. Austrian novelist and playwright Peter Handke built his reputation on lyrical introspection and rebellion against conformity. His prose influenced generations of European writers, culminating in the 2019 Nobel Prize in Literature for an influential work that explored the periphery and the specificity of human experience. But outrage followed immediately. Handke had long defended Serbian nationalists during the 1990s Yugoslav wars, attended Slobodan Milosevic's funeral, and questioned documented massacres like Srebrenica. Survivors and historians accused him of whitewashing genocide, turning literature into propaganda. Even as protests filled the streets of Stockholm during his Nobel ceremony, Handke remained unrepentant. His case ignited furious debate. Should artistic genius excuse moral blindness? It reminded the world that sometimes the cruelty isn't in what a writer invents, but in what he refuses to see.
Kary Mullis, the inventor who denied the science he loved. Few discoveries have had more impact than PCR, polymerase chain reaction. In 1983, American biochemist Kary Mullis found a way to copy DNA billions of times in hours, a method that underpins genetic testing, forensics, and modern medicine. His invention earned him the 1993 Nobel Prize in Chemistry, placing him among the most influential scientists of the century. But Mullis soon became notorious for rejecting the scientific consensus that made him famous. He publicly dismissed the link between HIV and AIDS, attacked climate change research, and promoted psychedelic drug use as inspiration. Colleagues described him as brilliant yet dangerously convinced of his own infallibility. Even as PCR helped identify viruses and exonerate the innocent, its creator drifted toward conspiracy. Mullis's life became a strange mirror of science itself, capable of saving countless lives, yet always vulnerable to the one mind that refuses to believe its own evidence.
Rudyard Kipling gave the world The Jungle Book, Kim, and the line, "If you can keep your head when all about you." His rhythmic prose celebrated duty, courage, and adventure, shaping the imagination of empires. But beneath that music lay the moral dissonance of the British Empire itself. Kipling's verse glorified colonial rule, describing non-Western peoples as half devil and half child, and his stories became cultural armor for imperialism. Though later he expressed regret over World War I's senseless loss, he never truly renounced the ideology that justified empire in the first place. Today, scholars read him through two lenses: stylistic genius and political propagandist. Kipling's art captured humanity's yearning for order and heroism, but it also revealed how easily art can serve the myths that keep injustice alive.
T.S. Eliot, the modernist master with a dark prejudice. When T.S. Eliot won the 1948 Nobel Prize in Literature, he had already reshaped poetry with The Wasteland, a masterpiece that captured the fractured spirit of the 20th century. His dense symbolism, biblical cadence, and cold beauty made him a central figure of modernism. Yet, scattered through his early essays and poems were unmistakable streaks of anti-Semitism. He warned that a large number of free-thinking Jews could threaten cultural order, and included unflattering caricatures in verses later revised. While Eliot's defenders argued context or irony, his private correspondence revealed that prejudice ran deeper than metaphor. In later years, he distanced himself from those views, embracing Christian humanism and universal moral themes. Still, the shadow endures. Eliot's story reflects literature's uneasy truth. Even genius can echo the biases of its time, and sometimes its silence speaks loudest of all.
Andrei Sakharov, the physicist who fought his own creation. A prodigy of Soviet science, Andrei Sakharov helped design the hydrogen bomb, a weapon that guaranteed mutual destruction. His success made him one of the USSR's most valued physicists and granted him immense privilege. But as he watched the political and human cost of his invention, conscience overtook patriotism. By the late 1960s, he denounced nuclear testing and the absence of human rights inside the Soviet Union. His outspoken essays triggered surveillance, humiliation, and exile to the closed city of Gorky. In 1975, while still confined, Sakharov received the Nobel Peace Prize for his moral resistance. His wife, Yelena Bonner, accepted it in his stead. Sakharov's life is the rare case of a mind that crossed from destruction to redemption. The man who built the bomb became its fiercest critic. His transformation remains one of history's most haunting proofs that repentance is a form of genius too.
Luc Montagnier, the scientist who discovered truth, then rejected it, 1932 to 2022. In 1983, French virologist Luc Montagnier led the team that identified HIV, marking one of the greatest medical triumphs of the century. His work saved tens of millions of lives and earned him the 2008 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. But as his fame grew, so did his distance from mainstream science. Montagnier gradually embraced pseudoscientific theories, claiming that DNA emits electromagnetic waves, supporting homeopathy, promoting anti-vaccine rhetoric, and suggesting that good vibrations or water memory could treat disease. During the COVID-19 pandemic, he spread false claims that the virus was man-made. Once hailed as a hero, he became a fixture at conspiracy conferences. To colleagues, it was like watching a genius walk backward into darkness. Montagnier's story is a modern parable of how arrogance can turn discovery into disbelief, proving that even the brightest mind can lose its orbit around truth.
Al Gore, the climate crusader and capitalist contradiction. Former U.S. Vice President Al Gore won the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize, shared with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, for awakening global urgency about climate crisis through his film An Inconvenient Truth. He became the face of environmental awareness, arguing that the planet's future depended on immediate human action. Yet, Gore's transformation from politician to global ecopreneur exposed the moral tension between message and lifestyle. Critics noted his lavish energy use, corporate speaking fees, and heavy investment in green technology startups that profited from the very policies he promoted. Investigators later found exaggerations and inaccuracies in some of his film's data, intensifying claims that he turned science into ideology. None of that erases the importance of his warning, but it complicates it. Gore embodies the paradox of the 21st century reformer, the champion of sustainability, living a life few could sustain, preaching planetary humility from the rooftop of power.